Mr. Chairman, Mr. Holder, it is provable beyond a reasonable doubt, in my judgment, that Maine Justice had actual or constructive knowledge of gun walking, both in Fast and Furious and beforehand, and I'm going to prove it to you. March of 2010, DOJ, not U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona, DOJ assigned a prosecutor to Fast and Furious. March 2010, Gary Grindler, who I believe is your Chief of Staff, knew about straw purchases and Fast and Furious and seizures in Mexico, and it doesn't take a very good prosecutor to ask how weapons got from Phoenix to Mexico. July 2010, a memo to you through the acting deputy AG. That memo specifically mentioned Fast and Furious. It specifically mentioned straw purchasers. It specifically mentioned 1,500 firearms supplied to Mexican drug dealers. That's July of 2010, 1,500 firearms. April 30th, 2010, a memo from Maine Justice employee Weinstein to Lanny Brewer. ATF let a bunch of guns walk. And then the rest of the email is worrying about the negative press connotations that may have come from that. Not how to fix the policy, but how to mitigate negative press consequences. October of 2010, Jason Weinstein and James Trusty swapped emails and specifically mentioned gun walking. And Mr. Attorney General, that email is so illustrative of our frustration with the notion that Maine Justice did not know about this. I'm assuming that James Trusty is a Maine Justice employee. Am I correct?
I believe that's correct.
All right. This is the email. And they're specifically talking about Fast and Furious, and in fairness, they also mention Laura's Tucson case. They say it's a tricky case given the number of guns that have walked. But it's a significant set of prosecutions. The email back to that is, I'm not sure how much grief we're going to get from gun walking. It may be more like people are finally going to say, we went after the people who sent guns down there. Now, lay aside the merits of that argument. How can you deny that people in Maine Justice knew gun walking was going on before that February 4th letter was sent to a member of Congress? That doesn't even get into the wiretap applications. That doesn't get to the factual predicate that a member of Maine Justice would have had to have read. All of this is before February 4th. That whole series of evidence predates Mr. White sending a letter to Congress denying the tactic. So my question to you is this: who participated in the drafting of the letter?
Well, first, this is going to be one of those rare instances. You're right. There was knowledge within the Justice Department of gun walking. It was related to a wide receiver.
And Mr. Attorney, with respect, I don't like interrupting people, but with respect, several of these emails specifically mention Fast and Furious. I'm not talking about wide receiver. Love to have that conversation some other time. Well, these emails and memos specifically mention Fast and Furious.
They mention Fast and Furious, but do they mention gun walking in Fast
Yes,
and Furious?
they do.
No,
that's my point.
I'd like to see those. Those I would like to see.
We got them from you. So, I mean, we got them from Maine Justice.
Let's do this. I've promised to give you all some information. I would really like to see a memo that says gun walking and Fast and Furious. I'd like to see that one.
Well, if you're looking for a videotape confession, I probably can't give you that. But what I can give you is an email from two Maine Justice employees back and forth specifically mentioning Fast and Furious. It's a tricky case given the number of guns that have walked. I don't know how it can be any clearer than that, Mr. Attorney General. And my point is this: the February 4th letter.
The gentleman will suspend. In order to get to the truth, we're going to take a 5-minute recess and have the documents given to the Attorney General. I've got too many people behind him trying to give him instructions on what it was and what it wasn't. We will, nobody leave. Please get the documents to the Attorney General and take what time you need. Use my conference room if you need it.
No, I can stay here. We can stay here. Yeah, we can stay here.
I would. I don't care. I'm not trying to catch.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Holder, for being here this morning. I just want to make a couple of comments to start out, because we've heard it from the other side of the aisle and even yourself with regards to this being a Democratic or Republican issue, whether this is a political game, if this is an election year charade. I think it's very important to recognize that you, as the Attorney General, with all due respect, need to be held accountable, or someone does, as to what happened. Now, I'm amazed that of all the issues that face this country, this is the issue that I hear from my district so frequently about. That, and in fact, today, and I will enter them into the record, I have no fewer than 30 questions from folks in my district who want to know what happened, why it happened, and who's going to be held accountable to it. And I was taken aback just a little bit with your response to my colleague, Mr. Wahlberg, when you sort of declared that I am the Attorney General. Well, with all due respect, sir, yes, you are, but you're also accountable to not only the folks in my district, but the American people. And I just want to, if you would indulge me, just play a recording, because most importantly, and as you're well aware of, we had a hearing here in June with Brian Terry's family. And in that hearing, I specifically asked his mother, and we'll play that hearing if you would please. A question that you would like us to ask.
I think we'd want to know if the dragnet that is set to find everyone involved in Brian's murder will be set deep enough and wide enough to encompass anyone involved in Operation Fast and Furious. If the guns used in Brian's murder were part of this operation, then we'd want to know, will everyone in that operation that had to deal with those specific weapons be brought up on charges of facilitating the murder of Brian Terry?
Thank you. We will ask that question on your behalf. And so, Mr. Attorney General, on behalf of Mr. Heyer, who is Brian Terry's cousin and actually the spokesperson for his mother and his sister, I would ask you, to what lengths has your investigation into Operation Fast and Furious gone? And will everyone in that operation that had to deal with those specific weapons be brought up on charges facilitating the murder of Brian Terry?
Well, we are certainly working now to, I mean, this is an ongoing investigation. It's actually at a very sensitive time, and I'm not sure I can talk about it an awful lot about where the investigation is. I've indicated that I think we're pretty close to making some announcements, and we will hold accountable, seek to hold accountable those people who are responsible for Agent Terry's death. With regard to people who were involved in Operation Fast and Furious, we are endeavoring to find out who made the determinations to allow guns to walk. I'm not really at liberty to talk about the weapons that were used in the actual incident that goes to ballistics reports. I don't think I can comment on here. That will obviously come out during the course of the trial. But we will hold accountable people who were involved in, as I've described, this flawed investigation. And one other thing, I did not mean to imply in the comments that I made there that I should not be held accountable. But I also think that there's a certain fairness component to this as well. And I ought to be held accountable for those things that are within my area of responsibility. I should be held accountable for things that are factually correct as opposed to those things that are politically desired. And I'm more than willing to admit mistakes when I have made them. But I also think that if we're going to really get ahead here, if we're going to really make some progress, we need to put aside the political gotcha games in an election year and focus on matters that are extremely serious. When one looks at the death toll in Mexico, when we look at the number of guns that have gone to Mexico.
My time is ticking away. I just have one more question. As unlike the chairman, I was one of the members of Congress who called for your resignation. I feel that the Department of Justice, that you're responsible for all of the activities that fall under your umbrella. And I think that you've denied knowledge of the program, and that accordingly you should not be held accountable. My question to you today is, what more could have possibly gone wrong that you would have been held accountable? And before you answer that, I would suggest that the President has been eerily quiet about coming to your defense. So let me ask it this way. How many more Border Patrol agents would have had to die as a part of Operation Fast and Furious for you to take responsibility?
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman may answer. Or not.
You know, that's the kind of thing, you wonder why you're getting those calls. I mean, people will focus on a question as much as an answer. And, as a member of Congress, really, is that the way in which you want to be seen, you want to be known? I should be held accountable for certainly my role in whatever I did or didn't do in connection with the supervision of Fast and Furious. But, yeah, I'm Attorney General of the United States, and I should also be held accountable and perhaps even given some credit. Imagine that, given some credit for the things that this Justice Department has done under my leadership, whether it deals with national security, revitalized antitrust, a revitalized civil rights enforcement effort. And so one has to balance all of these things. I'm not claiming to be a perfect person or a perfect Attorney General. I get up every day and try to do the best job that I can. I have great faith in the people who work in the department. And, that kind of question, I think is frankly, and again, respect, I think that's beneath a member of Congress.
Well, the gentleman has concluded, I think.